Can I please start by asking you to show your t-shirt one more time? And what does that translate to in English, President Fox?
Donald, you are a pendejo, an asshole.
So, President Fox, I want to start with drug legalization. Mexico is on the precipice of legalizing marijuana, and you have become a real global activist for drug legalization in recent years. How do you feel about the legislation that is on the cusp of being passed by Congress?
Well, on one side, I think it's a good law. We can do with it because it includes many of experiences for their countries. Companies like Chiron, which I'm on the board, a Colombian-Canadian company, is ready to go because it's been investing in this market, opening an office, having a CEO for Mexico, and through that, meeting the different distribution channels within Mexico, getting ready to acquire a net of clinics, which is the way the Chiron model operates, through clinics, attending directly to consumers and to patients.
I understand that you are on the board of Chiron. I'm interested in what you say in terms of a big and attractive market being created for marijuana in Mexico as a result of this legislation. How can we make sure, however, that small local producers and farmers will be able to compete against the Chirons of this world who are able to buy up large licenses and navigate regulations with much more sophistication?
That is a good question, and it's something that the same market will solve. What happens is, in the case of medical use of marijuana, you need high technology, you need research, you need to invest in innovation, the way it has been done in countries that have already legalized. So only larger companies have that capacity. But on the other side, we have all these small and medium people that will try to get into the industry. And the solution for that is very clear. The industry has integrated itself like the automobile industry has done. So you have on the top a ensembling plant, a brand like GM or Ford or any of them, which do the marketing, they do the development in technology and research, and they do coordinate the growth. Now, these companies in the automobile industry, and same is happening in the cannabis industry, is going to be integrated the same, like a pyramid. So you're going to have somebody leading the path to the market, but they will have suppliers, first-line suppliers, will have the possibility of doing business, and each of those suppliers will have its own suppliers and their own people to produce for them. So at the very end, you will have a company like Chiron, and you will have campesinos doing a small facilities of production, or larger farmers in Mexico, which we have plenty of them, very professional and very capable. These farmers will install greenhouses, which are very expensive. To invest in 1 hectare of greenhouse, you need minimum $500,000 and many times much more. So the integration of the industry in this form will take care of the big international corporations, the local investors that want to invest in those corporations, like Chiron is right now, open for investment. So anybody that has a little bit of money available, they can invest in Chiron, and they will participate on the industry and the returns of the industry. That's the way it's going to be composed, and I think that's very important, because the day United States opens the market federally, this is for the whole of the nation, not states like it is now, then it will be a NAFTA industry, which will be linked between Canada, United States, and Mexico. And that will make it international. That will have the need for this pyramid to work efficiently and supply the markets in either of the three countries.
But President Fox, you mentioned the other countries that have chosen to legalize marijuana. Let's have a look at Canada, for instance. Obviously, the legislation was designed and enacted to help Indigenous and Black farmers engage in this market legally. Unfortunately, what we have seen in Canada, however, is that a lot of multinational corporations, which are predominantly owned by white people, really do have ownership over the market. How can we stop that from happening in Mexico?
Well, we have to work on avoiding many obstacles that the industry faces. One is what you're saying. The small guy seems to be aborted out of the industry. So we need reliable, ethical companies, professionals that understand that there is a piece of the pie for everybody. But that decision has to be taken by the participants in the marketplace. And number two, by the authority. They do have some incentives for the small guys. But let me tell you, a small guy cannot produce a car. The car has to be produced by GM. They are a huge corporation, international and global. They can do it. Not Juan Perez here in Mexico can build a car. Same thing happens with marijuana. Really, producing marijuana on the open fields, open in agriculture, is not working anymore. It's become a very, very sophisticated process to produce the plant first, the flower then, and the products that are derived from that. So we have to put that pyramid where we can invite and include the small guy, and the government has put some incentives for that to happen. But at the very end, let's be frank. I mean, like any other industry, you have the big guys that come in, that develop technology, develop the market, and you have the small guys that are smart, that are capable of coming in a niche, producing very special products, like companies that exist in Oaxaca. I mean, with the hongo and with many other uses of natural plants and resources, they can occupy a niche, very specialized, and they can do some business. That's the only way it will go ahead.
President Fox, this initiative to legalize marijuana occurs against the backdrop of a brutal drug war that has claimed hundreds of thousands of lives since 2006. I want to ask you, does it frustrate you that for some outside of Mexico, they view this as Mexico's problem, even though it is US demand for drugs and US-made weapons that are fueling this conflict?
I have always denounced that since I was president and all along, and that's a big problem in Mexico. Cartels are very strong. The U.S. market provides them with mammoth amounts of money, so they become very powerful. So they can get Chapo out of jail just by bribing all the people that is running that jail, and so many other things. They can integrate to their teams hundreds of thousands of kids with a salary, with a pay that is higher than what GM pays in the production line. So it's difficult to compete with them. But the story tells us a history and the background, which I can witness. These cartels, these people that is moving on the underground, that is on this criminal market, on this violent piece of actions in any country, they tend to join the industry because they are not stupid. They see that the industry now will generate money for them, income and returns. So they move out of the underground, they move out of the criminal activities, and they work for profits like an entrepreneur. I have also witnessed, I remember when I used to go to Seattle or Calgary in Canada, or those markets in Washington State, to meet with the illegal participants in the industry. I find them again today, but instead of having a tail in their hair, earrings in their ears, what they do now is they dress with a jacket, a tie, and they go to conventions. Today, There are international conventions and events that gathers crowds, big crowds, 1,500, 2,000, even up to 10,000. I've given conferences in audiences of 10,000 people. So the good guys or the good face inside of the industry is absorbing, or it has absorbed throughout the time, the bad guys, which have to move to other kind of criminal activities. But you see this in Colombia happening. You see this in all the west coast of the United States. You see it in Israel. Everybody now is a businessman in this industry. Everybody is in academy, in research, and it's a new industry. It's great that we were able to take away this plan from criminals and put it in hands of businessmen, of farmers, and government. So it's a totally different picture today.
I want to unpack what you said, President Fox, because you've mentioned taking the plant from criminals and trying to reduce the violence, significantly reduce the violence associated with the cartel involvement in marijuana. Cartels nowadays are generating such significant profits from other drugs such as fentanyl, methamphetamines, cocaine. Do you think that this measure will have a significant impact on de-escalating the violence caused by cartels?
It will, no doubt, because at least I estimate that 1/3 of their income comes from cannabis and marijuana. That's the part they're going to lose. They will keep the other income coming from other different crimes. So here we have a twofold strategy. One, we have to develop the industry of cannabis with strong ethical matters, with values, with morality. So make out of this industry a good, solid, legal, reliable industry. On the other side, governments have to keep fighting cartels. And this is what Mexico is losing that battle. And because President López has decided that he will do nothing. So he's just leaving the field open for cartels to move in whatever kind of crime they are participating. So the obligation of governments is absolute, and it's still active. So they just have to make a rule of law. They have to make sure that criminals are caught every day, 24 hours a day, and the whole of the 7 days of the week.
But if the cartels move away from marijuana and start dealing more heavily in, for example, fentanyl, right, which is easy to produce, cheap to produce, has higher profit margins, and has an insatiable demand in the US, won't that mean that there won't be a de-escalation in the violence and the influence of those cartels?
Well, there is a principle here that I am an advocate and I promote intensely. Prohibitions don't work. And this has been a prohibition for over 100 years to consume marijuana and cannabis, because some dogmatic religious community decided to call it forbidden and to make it illegal. That was 100 years ago. Up until now, things have changed. So prohibition is proven doesn't work. We human beings don't react very positively to impose prohibitions upon my behavior. So we like to be free. We like to take our own decisions. So, I mean, if somebody wants to consume marijuana, let it be. If somebody wants to consume amapola or morphina, let it be. If someone want to consume those chemical drugs, let it be. It's their choice. What authorities and we, the industry, have to do is bring in very strong information processes, like we're doing in Chiron, associated with Tecnológico de Monterrey. We have a diplomat, a seminar, and to teach the doctors and nurses community, to teach public in general that how you can consume this drug without doing harm to your health, and so on with the rest. So I am an advocate now pushing amapola. Amapola, this other beautiful plant and flower, which is grown in Guerrero. I think you call it in English poppy or something like that. And you get morphine out of it. And that's good. I mean, that's the good and right use of that flower. It's not to kill people. It's not to strengthen cartel. It is to provide human beings with new ways of attending your health. Morphine is in every hospital anywhere in the world. It's a huge market. And so why not in Guerrero start raising and producing more amapola, but let's do some research, investigation, invest money, and get the right product and sell it in this huge market.
President Fox, you're such a passionate advocate for drug legalization now. But during your presidency from 2000 to 2006, you were not pro-drug legalization. And instead, you did launch Operativo Mexico Seguro, which was a militarized response to cartel violence, which was a precursor in some ways to President Felipe Calderon's all-out war. Why didn't you press for legalization at the time of your presidency?
Well, two answers to that, and thank you for the question. Number one, because a president doesn't break the law. You have to go by the law and by the Constitution. And in my term, it was absolutely forbidden and penalized. So you have to do your work as president. Number two, presidents, being smart, they don't go against cultures. They don't go against general public beliefs. And at that time, the general belief is that this drug was very harmful, that it was not good for your health, and that was the prevailing thinking around marijuana and cannabis. In my time, year 2006, we reached the best ever in the whole history of Mexico crime rate. The lowest crime rate in Mexico's history was attained in year 2006, which was at the end of my term. So we didn't have a reason to bring the army to fight the cartels. We didn't have a reason to make out of that war a holy, massive war like Presidente Calderon did after my term. And so I just didn't have a reason to now. But immediately, when all this starts to detonate and grow, I decided to participate in it. I did a lot of research myself. I went to every single market. I learned from the markets, from the prohibited markets, from the illegal markets, that this could be changed, that this paradigm could be changed. And then I decided to dedicate part of my life to be that activist. And I'm now a speaker to most any big meeting around marijuana and cannabis or drugs. And it's because I'm part of the industry now, because I have many friends, because now it's a legal industry most everywhere in the world, and because now you can walk on the streets without being afraid that somebody's going to kill you or that government will take you and take you to jail, like they still do in the United States. I mean, that nation has 3 million people in jail because they consume drugs. It's absolutely stupid. And I hope the President Biden will take the path and the road to solve this problem and go for legalization at national level. I know there is many Congress people in U.S. Congress ready to go for it. I know public opinion now has seen markets like Colorado, like Oklahoma, like California, like Washington State, like many others in the States, but nothing bad happens when you open the industry and you legalize it. You just make a industry capable of attracting investment with the capacity to generate jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and an industry that generates taxes for government. So I don't think nobody should be against that, because nobody has died by excess consuming marijuana. I have not heard anybody that dies from that, except somebody that could start eating it and eating it and eating it and fill your stomach and then explode, like whatever.
I want to
like
touch on. I want to touch on President Biden. You are obviously a very staunch critic of President Trump. Now the US has a new president, in President Biden, who I'm assuming you know quite well because when you were president, he was chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. What should Mexico expect from a President Biden?
Well, first of all, to me, I don't have nothing personal against leaders or persons. It's not personal, my strong position against López Obrador. It's not personal, my strong position in the case of Trump or the case of Biden. What is, it calls my participation and commitment is policies that come out of these people. And policies that came out of Trump's office, many of them were wrong, and they are being proven now. Same is being proven right now here in Mexico. Most of the policies that come from López Obrador or his offices is wrong. It's affecting Mexico's capacity to grow sustainable. It's affecting Mexico's institutions. Very key democratic institutions are being attacked by populism and demagoguery. So that's what I'm against. Now, you can always have an excellent relationship between United States and Mexico. We're neighbors, we're friends, and we're partners with NAFTA. So it's like kicking the food that we get or the development that we can get from the United States useless. I think that we can build up a very constructive relationship between both nations. It is there, and we just have to follow it. Now, we have the two main problems there, which I hope that Biden solves because López Obrador is not solving. One of them is crime, when we're talking about violence. I think that United States and Mexico must work coordinatedly to make sure that we stop cartels from killing people. And number two, the case of migration. We have to understand that migration is a natural. U.S. full 300 million people, and 99% of them are migrants. They came from Africa, they came from Europe, they come from Latin America, now they're coming from Asia. So every citizen in the United States, except the natives, the original natives, is a migrant. Migration is an asset to any country. It works in favor of development nations, but when it is in excess, you have to moderate, you have to control your borders, I understand that, but you have to do it using your talent, using your wisdom, and this can be done. A solution must come from both leaders, the Canadian, the United States, and the Mexican leader.
So, President Fox, I'm interested in what you said about migration being such a great and powerful asset. Right now, there is the greatest number of migrants who are being apprehended at the U.S. Mexico border. Should the U.S. accept these migrants?
Well, that happened because of the wrong position and policies of President Trump. Now we have to dismantle that critical situation, that crisis that we're involved right now, and start going back to more intelligent, more wise ways of proceeding with migration policy. And this is what we should do. Mexico must accept that the United States has the right to control its border and has the right to control that valve of how many migrants can be absorbed and integrated into the U.S. market and U.S. capacities. In my time and later, it was estimated that United States can absorb over 500,000 people coming from abroad to join in the effort of that great nation. So there is room for orderly, well-managed solution for migration. Now, what you cannot do through that, then you have to go to the source. And that's the best approach to migration. Let's go to the source, where they come from and why they're moving out, and bring the solution right there. Syria, if they don't stop that war, migrants will keep on flowing, families will keep on moving out of their country. If there is some wise brain that can bring in a peaceful effort for Syria, migration will stop. If we can get for Central Americans a source of income in their own country, a job or some way of making legal, real income, the solution will come. Mexico is not anymore the number one expulsing migrant population like it used to be. Migrants are not coming from Mexico now as they used to. They're coming from Central America. And the only migration from Mexico in United States is intelligent, orderly migration. People come because there is a job. They come because they have family there or they have family here. So Mexico, in a way, has already solved the problem of migration. Now we have to face the problem coming from the south, coming from Guatemala, Salvador, Honduras, and all the rest. And that's where we have to come up with a Marshall Plan type, like it was done in Europe, to recuperate growth, to promote economies and jobs. We have to do it there in Central America. And that's where President Biden should be wise enough, instead of building walls and spending money and more money in controlling the border between Mexico and United States. They spend billions of US dollars there. Use those billions to bring in and provoke development in Central America. That would be the right solution, and the portion is that it can be done.
So, President Fox, do you agree with President López Obrador's decision to crack down on Central American migrants coming in through the Mexico-Guatemala border and deploy the National Guard to that region?
No, absolutely. I'm not in favor of that. He's doing wrong, and he should reconsider. Now, what he has also proposed, but is weak, his proposal, and he's not pursuing that proposal, is let's develop Central America on a joint Marshall-type plan, United States and Mexico. Let's bring in there. I did that. You will remember that we had that program that we called Puebla, Panama, which considered the city of Puebla as the starting point in Mexico, and would go down all the way to Panama and come up with a very strong, solid regional development program. And if you go today in that route from Puebla to Panama, you will find a truncal power line, a grid line that goes from Puebla all the way to Panama. In that power line, countries or regions that have excess power, you just put it up on that grid. And those who need power, you take it down from that grid. If you take Central America, Costa Rica is self-sufficient, but the rest are not. So Costa Rica will be bringing up to the grid the power they produce, and Ecuador, Guatemala, and the rest will consume it. Mexico is abundant in producing power in southern Mexico. That's where we have the big dams in Chiapas, in Tabasco, in those places. We produce a lot of energy there. That energy has to be conducted down south to meet the needs of countries down there. So that's just one example. The other one is let's bring in industrial parks. Let's make regions competitive through bringing in universities, knowledge, research, peace, and stability. And industry will come and invest, and they will move the products out of the Panama Canal, either to the west or to the east. So you just need a mind open to bring solutions, and they can be done.
President Fox, when you were president, you did have these very lofty goals for migration reform, which included giving amnesty to undocumented workers in the United States, a comprehensive guest worker program that would enable more Mexicans to work in the United States, and obviously, open borders in an EU-style arrangement. Now, obviously, that didn't come to fruition because President Bush couldn't get the votes, but it's now 20 years later, and President Biden is proposing a path to citizenship for undocumented workers. Do you think that there's cause to be hopeful for that migration reform this time round?
It would be wise. Wisdom comes when you are 70 or older. So Biden has wisdom. He can really think positively about solving this. I think he has started taking small steps towards this goal that you're mentioning. Of course, he has the opposition of Republicans. He has difficult competitive situations in Congress, which is not easy to convince everybody, but he will do the job if he has time. So I really think that can happen, like it happened with President Bush and myself. We did reach a point where everything was ready to go. This was September the 7th of that bad, awful year of the attack to the towers there in New York. I was in Washington 4 days in advance of that sad incident. And I was with Congress, with the different commissions in Congress. I addressed both joint chambers of Congress. President Bush had already decided, and unfortunately, September the 11th came about. But that was very compelling law. It included, number one, let's legalize, let's document those 11 million Hispanics or Mexicans that were in the United States illegally at that time. So let's legalize the situation. Let's document each one of them so that they can stay in the United States and they can keep working. President Biden is in favor of this. He's going to be working on it. Number two, once you do that, number two is out of those 500,000 migrants that come every year, allocate amounts to each country. Mexico can have 80,000 of those 500,000. Central America can have 60,000. South America, so many more. India and the rest. So allocate that 500,000 that is needed by United States to bring in the talent and the labor effort that is needed there. And number three, let's make it constitutional. Let's make it legal so that it stays there forever. All of that we had agreed, United States and Mexico, under the administration of President Bush and President Fox. Unfortunately, September the 11th came about. So I came back home very sad, and President Bush gave me a phone call and said, Vicente, I'm sorry to tell you, but this has changed priorities in the United States. We're not going to be working on migration now. We moved to working on attacking terrorism. And he did a big crusade, and he stopped terrorism around the world in a way. So I understand things happen, and you have to adapt to new circumstances.
So I want to talk to you about collaboration and trust between the US and Mexico, which was obviously something that you did stake your presidency on. Many Mexicans were pretty infuriated when General Cienfuegos was arrested in the United States for alleged collaboration with the cartels without notifying Mexican prosecutors. And then likewise, US officials were pretty angered when General Cienfuegos was sent back to Mexico and then exonerated here. What do you think that this incident says about the level of trust and collaboration between Mexico and the US? Do you think that they both share the same objectives when it comes to combating crime and corruption?
That's a very sad event. We never know how many things went on the ground in negotiations between United States and President López administration, but everything they did was wrong because they closed out any possibility of doing justice in any direction that justice can always bring, and they just made an agreement en lo oscurito, as we say in Mexico. So in that dark room where the two were discussing, they made some arrangements that they cannot make public. They have not made public because they were not transparent, because they were not legal. So it's a very sad incident. I'm really surprised that the United States, and this was wrongdoing, accepted to negotiate justice and to negotiate the law. The case of Mexico, it happens quite frequently, especially in President López Obrador. He's always administering justice according to his way of thinking and to what he thinks is right, not according to the law or the Constitution. Very bad event, wrong event. I touch United States and Mexico for that event.
And when you talk about transparency of the López Obrador administration, one thing that you did stake your presidency on was the idea that you were restoring democracy in Mexico by breaking one-party pre-rule, by declassifying government documents, by ensuring greater protections for the press. Obviously, President López Obrador has attacked the press. Do you feel concerned about Mexico's democratic future?
Yes, I'm very, very concerned. López Obrador never, or in very few occasions, speaks the truth. He's always lying. He's always exaggerating. He's always not sustaining what he says and what he commits. So we're not doing well. And we hope that we can correct. It would be desirable that he corrects, because he has his chosen ones, which is half of the population, 45%, that are unconditional to him. He governs for them. He gives them whatever they want or whatever they need. And the other 55%, we are the forgotten ones, including their businesses, small businesses, including their education. So it's a very discriminatory government, and but this is populism. This is demagoguery in Latin America. Unfortunately, populism and demagoguery reached Mexico with López Obrador. Unfortunately for the United States, Trump, which is also a demagogue, which is also a populist on the far right side, was an event awful for the United States.
But obviously, President López Obrador does remain very popular in Mexico, while your party, PAN, suffered a major rebuke in 2018 and stands to lose much further ground in the congressional elections. What do you think PAN needs to do to become a meaningful opposition in Mexico?
Well, each of the parties has to regain credibility, has to get closer to citizens. They have a long way to go and very difficult task. So on the meantime, trying to bring back balance of power, trying to bring back the independence of Congress, we have this next election in June the 6th. And it's a great opportunity for Mexico, maybe our only one last opportunity to stay in path, to stay under the right direction, like all successful countries of the world are doing. This is our last chance, I would say, and it's June the 6th. So what was decided, and I welcome this, is that the main opposition parties, PRI, PAN, PRD, joined in a strategic agreement to operate together in many of the electoral districts throughout the nation. So when you cannot do it on yourself, you associate with others, and this is what happened. I think this will work, but it has much more that has to be done to make sure that we regain a Congress where nobody, no party individually has majority, so that each of them are forced to think, to use their intelligence and their wisdom, so that every party now can have a voice, which we don't have. And at the very end is to put the bridles on a wild horse, which is López Obrador, and stop him from destroying the nation. So this is the opportunity, June the 6th, and I hope we get, and it's very democratic, I hope we get a Congress where there is no majority for none of the parties. This will oblige López Obrador to think before he speaks, will oblige him to reason because he comes with occurrences. It will oblige him to negotiate with Congress and other political parties. And it will force him to govern for 130 million Mexicans, not to only to the 30 million that voted for him. So that's what we expect. That's what we, and I personally expect that it will happen on June the 6th.
Okay. I want to talk to you about your life after presidency. Obviously, a lot of Mexican presidents tend to shy away from the limelight. And you certainly haven't done that with some of your more public battles with President Trump and obviously President López Obrador. Why have you decided to return to the public arena in such a forceful way?
There's only one answer, Mexico. There is no colors in Mexico. We should all work for Mexico, to have a great Mexico that we can have, to have a successful Mexico that we can have, to have a Mexico which is a gift to our descendants, to our kids, to our families, that we have a Mexico where equal opportunities will be there for everybody, a Mexico where this huge mammoth gap between those who have and those who don't can be narrowed. So it's an aspiration that every country has, every citizen has, but leaders many times don't understand, especially those populists and demagogues, which their only cause is power, 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 like Maduro today, like Castro in his time, like Chavez in his time, and like now is pretending López Obrador to do.
And obviously, one of your main roles is also serving on the boards of marijuana companies like Chiron Life Sciences. You've spoken previously about the substantial donations that your foundation has received from Chiron. What do you say to critics who suggest that, maybe your activism is a form of economic opportunism rather than a change in your political views?
Well, that's not my drive. I have very clear my purpose. I have very clear my objective. I have to nourish 3 foundations. They need a lot of money. I don't have the money, which many people would think that I have by being former president of Mexico. So what we do is work intensely to raise money for the foundations. And one way of doing that, and this happened with Chiron, at their own free will, they decided to pay me back with donations to the foundation. I think it's great. Nothing to hide, nothing strange with that. Instead of giving me an honorarium or that, they decided to donate to the foundation stock, to the endowment of the foundation shares, Chiron shares, and I'm happy with that. It's public. Everything we do in Chiron is public, not only because we believe in integrity, that we believe in accountability and responsibility, but also because we are a public company in this Toronto Stock Exchange. And so you better behave and you better do your things well done, and that's what we do.
Mm. And President Fox, my final question to you is, it often takes generations to evaluate the success of a leader. How do you think history will view your presidency?
Well, I didn't work for that. I worked for the poor of Mexico. I worked for others trying to build a better Mexico. That was my drive, my move, and my belief. So that's why I work hard 24/7 in those 6 years. And I'm satisfied with what I did. And many things came fine and well. Others did not. And and I, by the way, I'm not of those guys or leaders that care about legacy and that care about what's going to happen in the future, how President Fox is going to be evaluated. I think you have to be evaluated by every action, every public policy, every decision you took during those years. And as I said, they were good, bad decisions. And on the balance, I'm satisfied. We have never had the lowest crime rate. We had the best ever for Mexico level of poverty. We reduced it. There's no other government that has reduced poverty in Mexico. It's been on the constant growth, except in my term. We build more homes than anybody else has built in Mexico, 1 million homes a year, and so on and on. Infrastructure, ports, airports, highways. Nothing of that is being done today. The only thing is being done today is what is easiest for López Obrador. He just sits in that chair, asks Secretario de Hacienda how much money we have today. Okay, you have this, President, and he gives it away. He's not investing in the country. He's not investing in agriculture. He's not investing in infrastructure. He's not investing in education or health. He's just giving away. That will not work. That's pure populism. And that's what I fight against, and I will fight to the rest of my life.
I have one final question I have to ask President.
So one more.
One more, I swear. But what is you've spoken about some of your great successes in terms of economic development, building roads and highways. What are your big regrets from your presidency?
Many things, as I said, were pretty good. Others were not. But today, I think in Latin America, we have to get away from ideology. We're always discussing ideology. The left, socialism, communism, the right, and ideology is not the drive for development. We need to be more pragmatic. We have to discuss and decide upon how do you create jobs? How do you create wealth? How do you make your economy grow? How do you have the best schools that will yield the best talents, strategic talent, and so on and on. So pragmatism today, to me, should be the driving force to all leaders in the world. Ideologies they don't work anymore. Look at the church, Catholic Church. They used to have 90% of Mexicans Catholic. Today, if we have 20% that are active, will be a lot. So ideologies, dogmas don't work. And with this, I finish. Enlightenment works. That's what really works. That's what made the United States the great nation that it is today. Enlightenment that has 3 pillars. One, reason. Always go after reason. Always think about what is reason and reasonable. Always make sure that your decisions are full of good reasons why you take them. Number 2 is science. Prove every policy, prove every decision. Make it work like in science. We learn in science that you get a stone, you drop it, and it falls down to the floor. And that came the law of gravity after doing it millions of times and learning that a rock, if you throw it, it falls down. So that's science. Science proves and certifies everything to make sure it's right. And number 3, humanism. Humanism is the great ingredient. Is being for others, is working for others, is moving away from selfishness, from lack of generosity, from evil, from lack of transparency, and be humane and attend those 8 billion human beings that we have, and we share a home with all of them. Let's be compassionate, let's have love, let's work for them.
Thank you so much, President Fox, for your time. We're super appreciative.
Muchas gracias. Suerte.